I never thought I'd be the guy who caught his wife cheating, especially not in the way I did. I had always been pretty trusting, maybe too trusting, but what happened changed everything. Her name was Lisa. She was sharp, bitchy when she wanted to be, but charming enough to get away with it most of the time. We'd been married for about 5 years, and honestly, I thought things were good. Sure, there were little fights about money and her constant need to control everything, but I thought those were just normal couple squabbles. Then last year, I volunteered for this new brain interface project. It was supposed to be the future, like mind-reading tech that could log your thoughts, emotions, even your subconscious. They implanted these microscopic sensors into my brain, and I was told it would help with medical issues and maybe even enhance cognition. It was a big deal and I was excited about it, thinking it could be a real game changer. I didn't realize how much it would change us. At first, everything seemed fine. The system worked and I could see my thoughts, my emotions in real time. But as months went on, I started noticing strange things. My logs showed sudden spikes of emotion when I wasn't even conscious of feeling anything, little flashes of happiness, anger, or anxiety during times I didn't remember being particularly upset. I chalked it up to the system calibrating or some glitch. I didn't think much about it until I noticed other strange patterns. Lisa, meanwhile, was acting different. She was snippy, defensive, and always seemed annoyed whenever I brought up what I was experiencing with the system. One night I caught her sneaking into my study while I was offline, fiddling with my sensors. She looked guilty, and when I asked what she was doing, she pretended it was nothing, just a stupid joke or some tech issue. But I wasn't convinced. I thought maybe she was trying to mess with my logs or gather some info. The paranoia started creeping in. Then came the day I found out she'd been lying outright. I was reviewing my neural data logs because I'd noticed a spike in emotional activity during a meeting I barely remembered. That's when I saw it, something I wasn't supposed to see. These tiny, barely perceptible blips of data that recorded a different kind of emotional engagement. The logs showed her with a technician named Mark. He was the specialist who handled my neural calibration. I saw that during the times I thought I was just working out and relaxing, her interactions with him were way more intense than they should have been. These logs weren't just about calibration. They recorded conversations, touches, and what I can only describe as an emotional affair. The system logs were microscopic, tracking my thoughts, my feelings, but they also tracked hers. And what they revealed was her betraying me in ways I never thought possible: secret meetings, flirtations, outright cheating. When I confronted her about it, she played it off like I was crazy, said I was imagining things, that I was paranoid, that Mark was just a friend helping her with some tech issues. But the logs didn't lie. That day, I felt my world shatter. I'd always known Lisa was bitchy, manipulative even, but this was a new level of betrayal. She lied about everything, about the affair, about her feelings. She told me it was a mistake, that she was bored, that I was emotionally absent. Honestly, I was furious, but deep inside I was gutted. How could she do this to me? I'd trusted her, invested in this crazy tech, and she used it as a tool to cheat behind my back while I was unaware. The worst part, knowing that my own mind, the thing I thought was mine, had been recorded and betrayed. Those tiny particles inside my brain, designed to help me, logged her betrayal long before I even had a clue. It was like I wasn't just betrayed in the usual way. I was betrayed by my own mind, recorded and stored like some secret file. It made the pain worse because I couldn't even deny the truth. It was there, in the logs, in my own thoughts. That moment, I knew I had to plan something. I couldn't just walk away and pretend it was okay. I had to get revenge, not in some petty way, but in a smart, calculated way that would hit her where it hurt. I started thinking about how much control I had over my own mind and what I could do with that. I didn't just want her out. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be completely exposed, vulnerable, and betrayed. That's when I decided I'd take control of this situation, even if it meant risking everything I'd built with her. Would you like me to keep going? After I saw the logs, I didn't sleep that night. My mind was racing, trying to piece together how deeply her betrayal went and what I could do about it. The thing is, I've always been a pretty rational guy, but this situation threw me into chaos. I kept going back over the evidence in my head, the snippets of her voice, the way her emotions spiked when she was around Mark. It was all there, plain as day, but I still couldn't believe it. Lisa, the woman I married, was cheating on me with my own tech behind my back. I started to dig deeper, looking into her phone, her emails, anything I could find. She was good at covering her tracks, but I knew her habits. She'd been sneaking around, meeting him in secret, probably in some of those local coffee shops or her office. I knew her enough to know she liked to lie her way out of everything, to blame her bullshit on stress or work when she got caught. That's exactly what she did when I confronted her earlier. Denied everything, called me paranoid, told me I was imagining things, but I had proof now. The logs didn't lie. I remember sitting there that night, staring at the ceiling, feeling numb, wondering how long she'd been doing this. Probably months. Maybe since I got the implant, she saw it as a way to keep tabs on me, or maybe she simply didn't care anymore. The betrayal cut deep, but what stung worse was knowing she'd lied and manipulated me so smoothly. I'd been so blinded by my trust, and now I realized she'd been planning this all along. That bitch. In the morning, I decided I had to confront her. I wasn't going to let her keep lying or deny what I knew was true. I sat her down at the breakfast table. Her face was usually so bitchy when she was annoyed, but this time she looked different. Defensive, evasive. I laid the logs out in front of her, showing her the evidence I'd collected. Her face went pale, and she started to spin some bullshit about how it was just sex, that it didn't mean anything, that I was overreacting because I was insecure. Yeah, right. Because nothing says nothing serious when the logs show her in bed with him, whispering sweet bullshit and laughing like a damn fool. Her reaction was pure denial, but I saw the flicker of guilt behind her eyes. She tried to turn it around on me, accusing me of spying or invading her privacy, which was rich considering she'd been sneaking behind my back. I told her I wasn't about to be played anymore, that I'd had enough of her lies. That's when she started throwing out the classic lines. She was bored. She never loved me anymore, that I was emotionally distant, that I didn't satisfy her. It was all her usual bullshit, but I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. The worst part, watching her try to gaslight me in person, knowing full well she'd lied to my face for months. I could see it in her eyes. She knew she'd been caught, but she still wanted to deny everything, still wanted to make me feel crazy. It was disgusting how she spun her excuses, trying to minimize her betrayal with sex, as if it was just some casual thing, but I knew better. I knew it was more than just sex. It was emotional, it was betrayal, and worst of all, it was a breach of everything I thought we stood for. That confrontation was like a punch to the gut. I felt everything at once: anger, sadness, betrayal, even shame that I'd put so much trust in her. I kept thinking about how she'd lied to my face, how she'd secretly been with Mark during moments I thought we were just having dinner or watching TV. It made me feel sick to my stomach. I had trusted her to be honest, to be faithful, and instead she'd been sneaking around, laughing with him behind my back while my own mind was logging her betrayal. But I didn't just want to be hurt and walk away. I wanted payback. Somehow, I wanted her to feel the same violation I did, maybe even more. I started thinking about how I could use what I knew, what I could control. This brain implant wasn't just some medical device anymore. It was a weapon. I realized I could manipulate my own logs, hide some things, or even make her think. I didn't know about her affair. I wanted to turn her world upside down. If she thought I was completely oblivious or naive, I'd change that. That's when the plan took shape. I started working on how I could use the system to my advantage, to strike back subtly without revealing I knew everything. I knew her habits. She was vain, she needed to feel in control, and she hated being caught off guard. If I could make her think I was oblivious but secretly be one step ahead, I could punish her in ways she'd never see coming. It was dangerous, and I knew it could backfire, but I was past caring. Would you like me to keep going? The more I sat with my thoughts, the clearer my plan became. I realized I had the perfect tool: my own mind, my logs, and her own secrets. I started to manipulate the data, not in a malicious way but to make her believe she was still fooling me. For example, I'd selectively hide certain emotional spikes or conversations in my logs, making her think her lies were working. Meanwhile, I was gathering more intel, watching her every move, waiting for the right moment to strike. I also knew she was paranoid about me becoming too distant or suspicious, so I started acting more detached, cold even. I'd respond to her with neutral answers, rarely showing any emotion, all the while keeping my eyes and ears open. It was a delicate game, playing the part of the clueless husband while secretly planning to turn her world upside down. I'd learned that women like Lisa thrived on control and manipulation. I'd use that against her. One night I set my plan into motion. I'd installed a subtle software patch into my neural interface, something I crafted myself. It allowed me to selectively send false signals to the logs to make her think I was still completely unaware. I also started sending her fake emotional responses in my own mind, little signals that I was still happy, still invested. Meanwhile, I was secretly recording her interactions with Mark, analyzing every word, every glance. I didn't want her to suspect I knew everything, but I also wanted her to feel vulnerable, exposed. The day I decided to confront her again, I prepared. I knew she'd be expecting the usual gaslighting, the denial, the blame shifting. But I wasn't going to play nice this time. I told her I had some new evidence, which I did. I showed her my logs, but this time I made sure she saw what I wanted her to see: her flirtations, her secret texts, her late-night meetings. I let her see that I knew that I had been in control all along. Her reaction was priceless. She froze, eyes wide, trying to deny it all. But the evidence was irrefutable. I saw her scramble for words, her bitchy facade cracking, revealing the panic underneath. She tried to storm out of the room, but I blocked her. I told her I wasn't done. There was still more she needed to understand. That I knew everything about her betrayal, every secret, every lie, and I was just getting started. I saw a flicker of genuine fear in her eyes for the first time. That made me feel a strange mix of satisfaction and disgust. She always thought she was smarter than me, better at lying, but I had outplayed her at her own game. I realized then that I could never trust her again, not like before. Her lies were too deep, her manipulations too many. The betrayal was just about the sex or the affair. It was about the total breach of trust, the way she'd used me, my tech, and my own mind against me. That night she stayed quiet, eyes fixed on the floor, trying to come up with some excuse, but I knew the truth. The logs told me everything I needed to know. I sat there thinking about how much this had changed me. I'd always prided myself on my control, my rationality. But now I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I was angry, hurt, and disappointed. I didn't want to be the guy who just forgave and moved on, at least not without making her realize what she lost. I decided I'd give her one more chance to come clean, but I wasn't naive enough to think she'd do that willingly. I knew she'd try to spin her way out of it again, maybe even try to manipulate me into forgiving her. But I was done trusting her words. From now on, I'd trust what I saw in my logs, what my own mind recorded. She could lie all she wanted, but I had her secret now, and I was prepared to use it to my advantage. Would you like me to continue? Over the next few days, I kept my cool, acting like everything was normal on the surface. Inside, I was planning my next move carefully. I knew Lisa would be desperate to keep the illusion of control, so I wanted to give her just enough rope to hang herself. I started planting small false signals in my logs, stuff that I knew she'd pick up on if she ever looked too closely but wouldn't be obvious to anyone else. Little things like fake emotional spikes when she was near Mark, or missing logs during key moments. I wanted her to think I was still clueless, just enough to keep her off balance. Meanwhile, I kept watching her. Every text, every glance, every quick exit she made to meet Mark. I even set up a fake message in my system, one that would send a silent alert if she tried to access certain data or logs. I was playing a dangerous game, but honestly, I didn't care. I was sick of being played for a fool, and I needed her to realize I wasn't the same guy she'd thought she was. One afternoon, she came home early, looking nervous and jittery. Usually she'd be bitching about something or throwing attitude my way, but this time she was tense. I played it cool, pretended I didn't notice. She tried to act normal, but I caught her sneaking her phone into her purse when she thought I wasn't looking. That's when I knew she was planning her next move. She wanted to cover her tracks, but she didn't realize I'd already got her wired. Later that evening, she confronted me about my coldness, tried to pin some kind of blame on me, said I was acting weird and that I'd become distant, unresponsive. I just looked at her and said, "If you're so innocent, why are you hiding your phone? Why do I see these logs of you meeting Mark in secret?" Her face twisted into a bitchy sneer, but I saw the crack in her armor. She tried to deny, of course, but I had her cornered. That's when I decided to escalate. I brought out the logs again, but this time, I showed her a version where I'd erased her most incriminating interactions. She saw the gaps in her story widen and her facade crumble. Her bitchy attitude turned into outright fury. She yelled, called me paranoid, accused me of hacking her. I told her I didn't need to hack anything, her own secrets betrayed her, and I had just been patient enough to wait for the right moment. She stormed out of the room, screaming that I was stalking her, that I was crazy, that she'd keep doing what she wanted because she was done with this bullshit. But honestly, I didn't care what she said anymore. I'd won that round. She was unraveling and I could see it. The woman who once thought she could manipulate me was now desperate, cornered, and exposed. I started to feel a strange sense of power. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my mind and dignity. I realized her betrayal had cut deeper than I admit. It wasn't just the sex or the affair. It was that she'd used my own tech, my trust, to lie and cheat while I was asleep, unaware. And now I had the upper hand. I was controlling the game and she was on the ropes. But I also knew that I couldn't just keep this up forever. There was a line I didn't want to cross into outright destruction. I wasn't that kind of guy. Still, I promised myself that I'd make her regret what she'd done. I'd show her she couldn't run from what she'd started, that I was not some helpless victim anymore. No, I was the one in control now, and I'd decide how much she paid for her betrayal. Would you like me to keep going? A few days after I had her cornered with the logs, I decided it was time to take things a step further. I wanted her to feel completely exposed, but I also wanted to do it in a way that wouldn't immediately blow back on me. I started to subtly manipulate what she saw in her own logs, just enough to make her doubt herself. I inserted tiny false signals, emotional spikes that weren't really there, messages that made her think I was onto her every move, even when I was. The goal was to keep her paranoid, to make her believe I had everything under control, even if I was secretly holding a few cards back. Meanwhile, I kept up the pretense of being distant. I responded less, seemed more aloof. That only fueled her insecurities. I'd catch her sneaking around again, checking her phone, trying to hide her tracks. I knew she was scared now, that she was starting to feel like she'd lost her grip. That feeling of helplessness, that was what I wanted her to experience. It was about sending a message. You don't get to lie and cheat without consequences. Not with me. One night she came home late again, smelling of perfume and guilt. She was trying to act normal, but her eyes said everything. I was sitting on the couch, pretending to be absorbed in my tablet, but I was actually monitoring her logs in real time. Her heartbeat, her emotional surges, it was all there, a perfect window into her anxiety. I saw her hesitate before going to the bedroom, trying to hide her phone, the way her fingers trembled when she unlocked it. That was the moment I knew I had her right where I wanted. I made a move that I'd been planning for days. I sent her a false message from Mark's number, one that only she'd recognize. It was a suggestive, flirtatious text pretending to be him. I made sure it looked convincing, meant to push her further into panic and guilt. When she saw it, she froze, her hand trembling. I didn't say a word. I just watched her reaction unfold on her face. She tried to deny it, but the evidence was right there. The message was in her inbox, the timestamp matched. Her face flushed, her bitchy attitude vanished for a moment, replaced by real fear. That's when I saw the cracks deepen. She knew I was onto her, that I had her in a trap she couldn't escape from. I could see her trying to pretend it wasn't her, trying to lie her way out of it again. But I didn't buy it anymore. I wanted her to understand that this game was over. The next day I confronted her again, this time with even more evidence. I played the logs I'd manipulated, showing her the gaps, the false signals. I told her I knew every lie, every secret rendezvous, that I had been watching her from the start. The look on her face was priceless, defiant, then desperate, then defeated. She tried to twist it, say I'd hacked her phone, that I was paranoid. But I just smiled and told her I'd been in control all along. She was the one who'd lied, who'd betrayed everything. From that moment, I saw her try to put up a brave face, but it was clear she was unraveling. She'd lost her edge, her bitchy arrogance. She was cornered, and I was the one holding the whip. I didn't want to humiliate her completely, but I knew I needed her to realize she lost her power and her control. I wanted her to feel the same vulnerability she'd inflicted on me, only magnified. Looking back, I realize I've crossed some line, but honestly, I don't care. She brought this on herself, lying, cheating, pulling strings with my own mind. I learned that trust is fragile, and sometimes you have to take control of your own destiny, even if it means using the tools she thought she was fooling. She thought she could manipulate her way out of this, but she was wrong. I had already won the game. Now it's just about how much she's willing to regret what she did. Would you like me to go on? The days that followed were surreal. Lisa's confidence was shattered, her bitchy attitude replaced by a toxic mixture of paranoia and guilt. She tried to deny everything, but she'd delve into her phone, her messages, her emails, all the while convinced I was watching her every move. I only watched, letting her sweat it out, knowing I'd done enough to make her realize she was no longer in control. I had turned her own lies against her, manipulated her perception, and shown her that she couldn't cheat or deceive without consequences. I started to withdraw even more, not because I was afraid of her turning aggressive or spiteful, but because I finally saw what I'd been missing all along. I'd trusted her, invested in her, and she'd thrown it all away for some fleeting thrill with Mark. The betrayal left a bitter taste, but it also brought clarity. I realized I'd been a fool to think we had a normal marriage, that her bitchiness was just her personality. What I found was a woman who was manipulative, selfish, and completely unfaithful, hiding behind her lies and her sharp tongue to cover up her guilt. The final blow came one evening when I played the last card I'd been saving. I sent her a message from Mark's account, one that confirmed everything. It was a confession, a detailed account of their affair, her secret meetings, and her blatant betrayal. I knew she'd see it, and I knew it would crush her. She saw the message, stared at her phone in stunned silence, and then broke down crying. Not because she loved me, not because she felt remorse, but because she realized she'd been caught, exposed, and that I had all the power now. Watching her fall apart like that was bittersweet. Part of me felt vindicated, like all the pain I'd endured was finally justified. But another part, the smaller, more human part, felt a deep sadness. No matter how much I wanted revenge, I never wanted her to suffer like this. Still, I knew that it was necessary. She had to understand that her actions had consequences, that trust could only be rebuilt if she was willing to face the fallout and change. In the end, I decided to leave her. Not instantly, but I made it clear that I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies. I packed my things slowly, carefully, while she was still crying and apologizing, or so she claimed. I didn't believe her anymore. All I saw was a woman who had betrayed everything we had, and no apology could undo that. I told her I needed time to think, to heal, and that I'd be gone soon enough. Looking back, I've learned a lot from this nightmare. Trust is fragile, and tech that's meant to help can be turned into a weapon. I learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it also forces you to see things clearly about yourself and about others. I also learned that revenge, however satisfying it might seem in the moment, is only a temporary fix. What truly matters is moving forward, rebuilding, and learning to trust again, but with my eyes wide open this time. So here I am, alone but stronger. The betrayal was brutal, yes, but it taught me that control over my own mind and my own life is the greatest power I have. Lisa's bitchy, manipulative side is gone, replaced by regret, I hope. I don't need to forgive her, I just need to forget her. And move on. Because in the end, the only person who truly betrayed me was her, and I've taken that back. For good.